Hey, happy Friday. Welcome to the Bryce DeJean Jones Appreciation Podcast. Well, let's get right into it. I mean, Bryce DeJean Jones, the biggest news story of the day.
Huge. Yeah, he's going to be a big, massive player for the Pelicans after he finishes his current, what is it, on a 10-day?
He's on a 10-day contract. You can't see it. I just flung my fingers up to make it 10 because
All right.
10 is the number of the day. Will the Toronto Raptors Thursday night against the New York Knicks on TNT with all of America watching won their 10th consecutive game, a new franchise record. They beat the Knicks 103-93. The 10-game winning streak, that's obviously a huge story. Not the best quality of competition during that streak, not always the most decisive victories or the most convincing two-way performances, but it takes a lot more than good fortune and good schedule to win 10 games in a row, and the Raptors have done it for the first time in 21 years.
Yeah, that's huge because now there are only 4 franchises left who have not had a 10-game winning streak, and the Raptors are out of that one. And yeah, like you said, man, obviously you can attach some caveats to the 10-game winning streak. Certainly there have been teams that have not been healthy. You look at the Heat, you look at the Knicks, you look at the Clippers. But who cares? Who cares? The 10-game winning streak, you got to play the opponents before you, and they did. And they took care of all of them. And some of them, a little bit shaky, like the Magic game was a bit shaky. And even the Knicks game that just ended was a bit shaky. But again, who cares? 10 games in a row. And now we're nipping at the heels of the Cavaliers for tops in the East.
This is my thought on these are my thoughts on the quality of competition and not closing out these games as nicely as you might like. Game to game, picking those nits is absolutely understandable and justified. Coming out of this Knicks game, they tasked Kyle Lowry with playing 41 minutes when he was a game time decision with a sprained left wrist. That's not even remotely close to ideal. The defense was mostly fine, but the offense for long stretches, they weren't adjusting to the Knicks sealing off the paint. Some guys, the shot selection was a little off. Patrick Patterson being too hesitant. TJ Ross firing a little too much maybe. And there have been things like that in every game. Washington, they had the starters on with a 17-point lead and 4 minutes to go. And that's when Kyle Lowry got hurt. Each game you have something like this. But for the 10-game winning streak, it's necessary to zoom out. 82 games is a long season. 21 years is a long time for a franchise to exist and for people to be fans. If you can't zoom out and appreciate the longest winning streak in the history of the team, then I think you're doing, I'm not going to tell you how to be a fan, but I think you're probably doing the fandom thing incorrectly.
Yeah, you're doing yourself a disservice. Like, you gotta sometimes step back and let yourself enjoy it all. And I think that's kind of the whole thing, because within the game, if anyone follows me on Twitter, like, I'll definitely complain about this or that, and I would like to make a lot of observations, and some of them are negative, but that is not reflective, man. Like, after the game, I look back on the games, I look back on the winning streak, and you just kind of bask in it. You have to bask in it. It's kind of glorious. They haven't lost in like nearly a month.
Yeah, it's a long time. And you said if people follow you on Twitter. If they don't, who's listening to this podcast and not following you on Twitter? That's at William_Lou, L-O-U. I'm at Blake Murphy, ODC. And obviously we
Come
are
on,
the
Blake.
Raptors
Everyone's
Republic.
following you on the pod.
We are the Raptors Republic weekly extra podcast, since I didn't actually do a proper intro. We have a few things to talk about. The 10-game winning streak is not the only great thing happening to the Raptors right now. Before we turn to the other awesome things that are happening to this franchise now and over the next couple of weeks, has the 10-game winning streak, other than the fact that it's given the Raptors a nice cushion for the 2 seed, which certainly will have matchup implications, has it changed your outlook on the team in a larger sense?
Well, I think we're going to talk about this in some of the later segments, but it's just, you need a lot of things to come together for something like this to happen. And I think the biggest, most promising showing is the continued just success of Lowry and DeRozan. You're never going to get a game now where both of them are struggling. Most times both players are on, and even if one is off, the other one is on, and so there's just always this consistency for the offense. And then you have the bench, which has suddenly rediscovered itself, and you've got the emergence of this killer bench plus Lowry unit, which I'm sure we'll talk about later on. And again, you're having all this happen, and I think the biggest weakness so far along the thing is the starting lineup. Like that's why the Raptors keep getting off to slow starts. Third quarters get a little bit lethargic because it doesn't really make sense to have so little shooting in the starting lineup. But at the same time, the bench rotations have been so good. You don't want to disrupt any of that, by replacing someone like James Johnson in the starting lineup. And it's just really promising because eventually DeMar Carroll is going to come back from injury, and he's going to replace James Johnson in the starting lineup, and the Raptors are going to get even better because he's going to be a positive force both on offense with the shooting and also on defense. He's just as good, I would say much better than James Johnson really on defense. So, I mean, yeah, look, a lot of positive things are happening in Raptors land, and the 10-game winning streak is kind of just like the big headline, but the causes underlying it is also quite positive, I think.
Yeah, your point about the starting lineup, which hasn't been good by any means, is a nice one too. The very first time I wrote about changing the starting lineup was before the opener when they announced that Scola would start at power forward instead of Patrick Patterson. I've always thought that was a weird fit. I always thought Patterson's the spacing he provides and the more versatile defense he provides were a more natural fit with Jonas Valanciunas. In this case, until DeMar Carroll comes back, I'm kind of the if it's not broke, don't fix it. And even if it's a little broke, everything else is unbroke, so don't tweak it. Dwane Casey's always been a huge proponent of role consistency, which is why why James Johnson drew the start in DeMar Carroll's absence in the first place, was that it was going to disrupt the rotation the least, it was going to disrupt the fewest number of players' roles. I've kind of, if you were fighting for a playoff spot, you need to maximize every single minute where the Raptors are and how much success they've had. And this 10-game winning streak is definitely a part of providing that breathing room and the necessary space to, take a step back and say, look, all this time playing together and keeping our rotations the same has helped get this bench unit going, particularly the Lowry +4 reserves unit. Let's, take our lumps if James Johnson and Luis Scola are the starters, because when DeMar Carroll comes back, this right now is exactly what our rotation is going to look like with Carroll and Johnson's play. So, the 10-game winning streak is fun for a lot of reasons. It's been great to enjoy. The important part of it is, in a regular season that doesn't mean that much to a team that's only going to be judged by the playoffs. The Raptors now have a 5-game cushion over the number 3 seed in the East. That can go away over the course of 36 games, but it's going to be tough if the Raptors play anything close to their best ball. So they do have this opportunity, when Carroll comes back, if that disrupts things, or he takes a little longer than they expected, or he has to shake some rust off, they have given themselves this latitude to be patient with things like the starting lineup not being great in order to keep the bench unit going well, and to be patient with DeMar Carroll. And we didn't see it Thursday, but if it called for it, to rest a Kyle Lowry when he's dealing with a sprained wrist. So let's use that as a seg. Lowry played. He played 41 minutes. They don't win the game against the Knicks without him, even though the Knicks were without Jose Calderon, Carmelo Anthony, and Kristaps Porzingis. Probably in the reverse order of importance, but Jose Calderon's my dude.
Wow, putting Carmelo behind Porzingis. It's a hot take.
Latvian god of putbacks? Come on.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, Porzingis has been great.
Anyway, so we don't know what Lowry's wrist was like. We don't have the medical information. We can't really judge. There are some context clues that suggest it got worse after Tuesday night's game because DeLon Wright was assigned to the 905 and then recalled before playing. So that suggests that maybe Lowry woke up worse for the wear. It's important. It's a game on TNT. It's a franchise record winning streak, and they probably don't win that game without Lowry. But should he have been playing?
Honestly, I argued that, especially since the Knicks were so banged up, that this is probably a good time to rest Lowry. And then, I had people come on Twitter and say, well, he's perfectly fine. Why shouldn't he play? And it's just, look, he's already 6th in the league in minutes, right? And, yeah, look, if Lowry doesn't play, the Raptors are much more hard-pressed to get the victory, and that's because, obviously, Lowry's really good, as seen in, tonight's performance, where he was, by far the best player on the court. But at the same time, you got to play for the long view. I think the Raptors have proven quite amply who they are as a team, what they're capable of, and I mean, you don't want to drop wins ever, but at the same time, you have a very, very short-handed Knicks squad, and Lowry's already 6 in minutes. It just didn't seem like too much of a reason to risk anything. Then again, like you said, we don't have the medical reports, so if the wrist was just completely fine, then okay, why not? And honestly, based on his performance tonight, he looked great. And there were no moments where you caught him sort of wincing or clutching that left wrist or anything. So, generally speaking, it's one of those write the story while the ball's in the air kind of thing, right? And so coming into the game, it seemed like the best idea would be to rest Lowry. But as it turned out, he played a huge part in the win and looked perfectly fine. So.
Yeah, my issue was not necessarily with the wrist because, again, we don't know, and if he says he's good to go, he's good to go. It's that he's in the top 10 in minutes, and so is DeRozan, and at some point that may or may not take a toll. We don't know for sure, but every minute you're on, and it's not just about Lowry being in shape, it's that every minute you're on the court is a minute that you're at risk for something like your left wrist getting caught between two players as you fight through a screen that didn't get called out. Or there was an instance in the first half where Lowry, going for an offensive rebound, ran into Patrick Patterson really hard and looked, not dazed, but like that hurt. And, that's something that over these next 36 games, I would like to see the team be more cautious of, even if it means a loss or two, because, this team would be nothing without Lowry. And this is nitpicking when it maybe isn't necessary, but Lowry got hurt on the court in a 17-point game with fewer than 4 minutes to go against a bad team, and then turned around and played 41 minutes 2 nights later against another bad team. That's, if you're taking the long view, and if all that matters really to the success of this team is how they do in the playoffs, those are not things that put you in the best position for the playoffs. And, variance is a thing, especially with injuries. You don't know. Lowry could play 5,000 minutes and not get hurt, or he could play, 2 more minutes and get hurt. Things are just weird like that. I'm by nature super cautious with player injuries and things like this. So maybe I'm worrying too much. One thing that won't help is that Kyle Lowry will not get rest over the All-Star break because he is the starting point guard for the Eastern Conference All-Stars in the 2006 NBA All-Star Game, which takes place in Toronto, which is awesome. Joining him will be DeMar DeRozan, who was voted in by the coaches. That was announced Thursday, leaked by Chris Vivlamore of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and then confirmed shortly after by TNT. DeMar DeRozan, Kyle Lowry, both All-Stars. This is awesome.
This is a first. Well, it's a second in franchise history, as we've discussed on this podcast in the past.
2000, 2001, yeah.
Yeah, Antonio Davis and Vince Carter. But yeah, man, this is really great. This is really great, and for DeRozan, like a guy like DeRozan, like it's kind of a coming out party for him in a little bit, because you're seeing it a little bit now, just flaring on the internet. People are noticing that DeRozan is taking a step with his game, and it's weird because it's not like DeRozan's doing anything particularly new. Although the 3-point shot, maybe, although it was a tiny sample. But look, it's kind of the same DeRozan. It's just he's doing everything better. And it's something where I noticed today in the Knicks game, like it was really hard for the Knicks to contain DeRozan because he's gotten so much better working and losing his man on screens. He's got all these counters. He's got all these, he's got the post game. His shooting has gotten marginally better, but I wouldn't say he's a good shooter, in overall. But it's just he's just gotten better at every little thing, and sometimes you overlook something like an incremental steps thing because you kind of want dramatic jumps and you want to say, look, DeRozan, if you add the 3-point shot to your game, that'd be huge. And year after year, the big jump doesn't necessarily come. But with a hard worker like DeRozan, he just kept refining and working his game, and he's at the point now where he's legitimately an all-star. And the first time he made it, it was kind of questionable, but this time, for sure. I mean, he's, I think, 7th in the league in scoring, doing 23-4-4, above league average efficiency, playing, obviously, shouldering a huge minute load for the Raptors, huge responsibilities. And, yeah, man, it's just really great. And also, so many adorable moments with Lowry. Again, he got clowned today, or yesterday, I think. He went on the Dan Le Batard show and talked about how he and Lowry used to go at 3 a.m. in the morning to the drive-thru to get McFlurries. It's a great time. It's a great time for DeRozan and Lowry, and it's huge, man. It's pretty close to the second best backcourt in the league right now.
Yeah, I think they are. I think Clay and Steph.
Yeah, by far number one. But
yeah, You bring up an interesting question though. McFlurries or Blizzards?
Quite honestly, I'm lactose intolerant. I don't usually go for those things. But if I had to choose,
shocked that you're lactose intolerant. By the way.
I am Asian. It happens to a lot of us. But yeah, what a story, man. 3 a.m. in the morning. They're just like us, walking through the drive-thru, getting denied service, having to pay a dude who was on a moped nearby to get their order.
Yeah, I've been there, man. And I've been that dude on the moped.
Yeah. Shout out to Macklemore.
Not literally, but... Okay, we'll get back to the DeRozan and the Lowry talk in a second, but we mentioned 3 a.m. looking for food in Toronto. We mentioned that you're Asian. All-Star Weekend coming up, and I mean, tying into that, I live in Chinatown. Coming up in 2 weeks is the All-Star Game in Toronto. Charles Barkley is so pumped. You know, we'll talk about in a second, this is an awkward segue, we'll talk about in a second the best place for people coming into town to get that late night Chinese, because that's a must. You're a 20-minute walk from the stadium, Chinatown, and everything is going to be open late. You get that late night cold tea. Actually, let's do that first. Is Swatow your number one or what?
You know, honestly, it's a very common spot, but King's Noodle is really good. It's just on the corner of Spadina and Dundas. It's like right in the smack dab of Chinatown, and they've actually got a huge selection of like some pretty authentic Chinese food, and yeah, they're open late.
And if you don't want authentic Chinese food, there's always New Ho King.
Yeah.
It's okay, so Charles Barkley, he wants to get his All-Star freak on. His words with Rob Ford. He said on the TNT broadcast tonight, you know, he's looking forward. Forget Gretzky, forget Drake. He wants to party with the ex-mayor. He figures he's got more time to smoke now, more time to get his freak on.
Oh, no.
He told Ernie and Shaq, don't act like you know me in Toronto because I got my own thing going on. Where are we most likely to see Charles Barkley in downtown Toronto All-Star Weekend?
The beer market.
Really?
That's where Rob Ford was.
There's got to be... I mean, Barkley showed out Mississauga, so maybe Barkley's got some weird, like, my apartment plans. I don't know. I'm having trouble pegging where Barkley might be. Like, he's not going to be where other people are going to be. Mm-hmm. But I don't... Beer market doesn't
No brass rail for Charles. Sir Charles. It's too much.
Did you say no brass rail?
Yeah, come on, man. Everyone goes to the brass rail.
No, for sure. You don't want to go somewhere. They'll probably go For Your Eyes Only on King, right across from down the street from the Score.
Oh boy, that's
lots of good late night eats in that hood too. So.
Hey, that's true. Yeah, King Street. A lot of douchey people late at night, but
oh yeah, the King West is that's what you get, man.
Yeah, but
people coming in for All-Star Weekend, stay off King West. Just don't go west of Spadina. You don't really need to go west of Spadina for much if you're in for All-Star Weekend. I mean, if you want some of the best foods in the city, you're going to have to venture out for sure. But if you're sticking around downtown for most of the All-Star events, you'll be able to keep a pretty tight circle. You obviously have to go west of Spadina to get to Rico, but in terms of nightlife, you can stay in a pretty small hub. I don't know I haven't really looked yet. You know, I get all these text messages, Drake, Bieber, all these parties going on. I haven't really figured out my game plan yet and where I'm going to be. Yeah. I assume it's the same for you, Arun, Sasha. You know, out with Pusha T.
Hey, man, I skipped the Pusha T concert to do this pod.
You didn't actually?
I did, yeah. I mean, it was tonight.
I'm working right now?
Yeah, it's going right now. It's like a free show. Although you had to line up since, like, I don't know, 7 p.m. to get in.
Well, that doesn't seem fair because Pusha T wasn't lined up. He was at the Raptors game.
I know, right? It's not fair. He should wait in line for Pusha T like the rest of us.
Yeah, hey, Pusha T is that big a deal. Speaking of missing concerts for... this is the stupidest
Don't worry,
thing.
It's still a Raptors pod, guys. We'll talk Raptors in a second. But yeah, what's up?
We're talking about the city of Toronto. We're talking about the city of Toronto and All-Star Weekend's coming here. It's Raptors adjacent. Speaking of missing concerts for the Raptors stuff, next Thursday the Raptors play again. All these Thursday night games.
Yeah.
All this stuff. They're in Portland next Thursday. I'll be missing Madchild in Kitchener. Like, the guy from Swollen Members is doing a show, and my buddy who raps is opening for him.
Wait, you have a buddy who raps?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he used to do the intro song for this podcast, Kill a Con.
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah, you mention him all the time, but I had no idea who that was.
Yeah,
That's huge, yeah.
Yeah, we mentioned him when we were talking tattoos and JJ Redick's arm sleeves.
And now I know.
He's good, and he's opening for the guy from Swollen Members, which is
that's pretty sick.
Any chance to see the guy from Swollen Members and only have to go like a few minutes from my place, that would be that'd be great. Be like that time I saw Lloyd Banks in Kingston.
Yo, shout out to Lloyd Banks. He's had some adventures here in Southern Ontario. Yeah. Apparently he got like arrested in Milton one time.
Who did?
Lloyd Banks.
Really?
Yeah. My roommate's from Milton. She told me about this.
Man, the best one like that I ever came across, I think, was Young Buck played a country bar in Cambridge.
All right.
Yep.
That's just a bar in Cambridge.
Yeah, it doesn't even exist anymore. It was like my dad's spot, and his buddy was the bouncer, so me and all my friends would get in when we were 18, and then my dad would be plastered and buy us all drinks. It was lovely. When the Little Bighorn Saloon went down and became a Boston Pizza, it was a rough day for my squad. All right, so back to the actual All-Star weekend. DeRozan is deserving. There isn't really a good argument against him. The Raptors have been better with him off the court, but so much of that is noise with the rotations with him and Lowry. Even if they are they have been a little better when he sits. That's descriptive, not predictive, and it's really hard to look past how good he's been offensively and how much he's done.
Yeah, and look, just because the Raptors might have better, or he might have slightly weird on-off numbers, the fact is that the Raptors are pretty good when he's on the court. And he's also drawing a lot of tougher matchups. And I mean, just look at it, man. Whenever the Raptors' offense is struggling, like DeRozan is usually the guy to go to. And he's come up huge in some of these games, man. He had that stretch like 3 weeks ago where he was dropping 30 every game. Well, maybe it was 2 weeks ago. I can't even remember now. And he's cooled off a little bit. But yeah, man, DeRozan has been really good. Really, really good. And for the most part, he's been under control. I thought of late he's been really feeling himself, trying some shots that are generally bad shots for DeRozan. But hey, he's hitting a lot of shots right now. And the Raptors are winning a lot of games against some, subpar competition. So why not? Why not feel yourself? Feel yourself like Terrence Ross.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd go that far.
I mean, today against the Knicks, he took a lot of mid-range shots. It looked like he was trying to go shot for shot with Aaron Aflalo for a sec.
Yeah.
But who cares? They won the game by 10.
Yeah. DeMar DeRozan subscribing to that Drew Fairservice school of shot selection. Miss till you make, and then turn around and make till you miss.
Shoot or shoot, man. Shoot or shoot.
Shoot or shoot. Even apparently if you're just developing as a shooter like DeMar DeRozan is. Any other notes from Thursday's game? I know you guys will do the whole rundown on Monday's pod. I thought Jerian Grant looked decent for the Knicks.
Yo.
Not defensively, but
yeah, he's a rookie.
Offensively he looked all right.
Yeah, Sasha Vujacic really came alive in the second half. I was like, I had a whole point ready in my game notes that I've been doing. And I was like slandering Sasha Vujacic because I was like, I have no idea how he's been getting minutes all season, shooting under 30% from the floor, 24% from deep, just abysmal on defense. And then in the second half, he was amazing. Like he was Klay Thompson-esque with some of these ridiculous catching.
Klay Thompson Jace.
Yeah, some of these shots. But hey, look, Sasha.
Those are things that happen.
He's got to go, man. Sasha's got to go.
He's got to go. There's no way.
He's really bad.
Phil Jackson's dude, man.
Is he the only guy that knows the triangle? Like, what's going on here? We got Derek Fisher already here.
Does he even know the triangle? I'm not.
Doesn't even look like he runs the triangle. Not
well,
really.
They are getting a unhealthy amount of mid-range twos. So.
Oh man, I thought it was.
I say mid-range twos as if there's such thing as a mid-range three.
Yeah. I thought honestly, like the Knicks, I think are fifth in the league and. Either fifth or second, I can't remember, in mid-range shots or percentage of shots originating from the mid-range. And I thought that was mostly Melo, and it kind of a lot is. But then today, man, Kyle O'Quinn was like firing all sorts of mid-range jumpers. And, I guess that's a testament to the Raptors' defense as well because, when you ice the pick and rolls and stuff, this is the desired outcome is if they shoot one of those like bad contested long twos. Yeah, but it seems like the Knicks really like those shots too. So it really worked out for both sides. And by worked out, I mean only worked out for the Raptors.
Okay, let's come full circle here and talk about the winning streak again. It's at 10 games.
Yes.
They are at home against a pretty good Detroit Pistons team on Saturday, and then they hit the road for 5 straight. The first 3 of those on the West Coast. Technically, it's 6 straight, but there's the All-Star game in the middle there. So I'm calling it a 5-game streak. 3 of them, 5-game trip. 3 of them are on the West against middling teams in Denver, Phoenix, and Portland, and then Detroit and Minnesota. So, that's 6 winnable games. You obviously don't expect the winning streak to extend to 16, especially with 5 on the road. One of their road games is in a back-to-back scenario. How far is this streak going?
Man, it's hard to say. It's really hard to say because it's like you said, man. These are all relatively winnable games, but it's one of these are going to be a trap game. I think they probably dropped the first one, honestly, on the road against the Nuggets. The Nuggets are surprisingly stingy. You never know, man. Some of the Nuggets, like their bigs, are very versatile, very interesting. You don't know what's going to happen with Nurkic.
Nikola Jokic, man.
Jokic has been really good. Versatile. Will Barton's fun. Jameer Nelson's oddly effective. Randy Foye had a big game against the Raptors last time. And the Raptors lost to the Nuggets last time. So, I mean, obviously we have their pick. So, it'd be great for the Raptors to defeat them. But, I don't know. First game of the road trip. Maybe some of that swagger dies on the first game. And hopefully that resets them for the next game. Because, again, some of these games are really winnable, man. Like, I don't want to see the Raptors lose against the Suns. The Suns are so sad. The Trailblazers, like, they don't play defense. And their offense comes and goes. And then you got the Pistons. I mean...
Let's talk Pistons for a sec, just because that's going to be the game that people have, after listening to this. The biggest issue there, not issue, just the point of interest, especially because Detroit is a potential first-round playoff matchup, Jonas Valanciunas and Andre Drummond. Valanciunas put up good numbers against Detroit last year on the offensive end. That's a pretty neat battle. I think the Raptors can match well with Detroit's smaller lineups. They've started to use Stanley Johnson and Marcus Morris a little more together with the starting with Reggie Jackson, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and Andre Drummond, and that's a really difficult lineup. But I think on the whole, the Raptors are pretty well built to handle a team that only plays one dangerous big. They've had issues with stretchy fours, but Ersan Ilyasova is not... he's not someone I'm too worried about. Marcus Morris, when he slides to the 4, that's a little bit different, but I think Patrick Patterson can match up well with him. What would you think about the Pistons, not just Saturday, but as a potential playoff opponent?
I was talking to someone on Twitter who said that they thought the Pistons were a tough opponent. I really disagree. First of all, I think the Raptors can score quite easily against the Pistons. I would say the best defender on the Pistons is probably Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, but I mean, like, he's one of those guards that are small, and he's like Avery Bradley-ish, and DeRozan has just feasted on smaller defenders this year. So
yeah, I think what they would do is they would have Caldwell-Pope on Lowry, Stanley Johnson on DeRozan, and then they'd try to hide Reggie Jackson somewhere. I mean, that's tough if Damari Carroll's back. You take your chances if it's James Johnson. I thought the Celtics. I think the Celtics will do the same with Bradley and Jay Crowder if they were to draw the Raptors and just try to hide Isaiah Thomas on the small forward. But I'm with you that it doesn't seem that daunting.
No, and look, the Pistons, like, and the Andre Drummond is actually not that great of a defender, because most of the game he has to conserve so much energy for offense and to grab all his rebounds. So I think the Raptors can score on the inside against him as well. I mean, Jonas is an option if they ever go to him. I think the Raptors have the most problems when teams are able to actively fluster and trap. And, Stan Van Gundy's played that kind of defense before, so maybe he adjusts. But so far, they've just played with regular ice defenses and stuff, and the Raptors have succeeded against those types of looks. I like the individual matchups. Drummond, obviously, the free throw shooting is always a way you can sort of cramp their offense if you just start hacking him continuously. And look, Drummond and Reggie Jackson are going to be a nightmare in the pick and roll to cover because it's just the physical dimensions of that is just too much. But yeah, I think the Raptors, they should be able to beat the Pistons. I would say at most 6 games. But hey, Who knows? Who knows?
So
it's a long time away.
They'll beat anyone. Dwane Casey said after the game tonight, I want to credit the right person. Michael Grange tweeted out that Casey said that that's our goal, to catch Cleveland, to be first in the conference. Let's end on that. Is that a realistic goal for the rest of the season?
Is it realistic? Sure, but is it that important? I don't think so. I think that the Raptors would be better off not overexerting themselves trying to push for number one and instead trying to get more rest for some other guards, especially Lowry and DeRozan. So if you have to punt 1 or 2 games down the stretch just to make sure those guys are healthy, please do that, because I think people are forgetting how bad the Raptors looked last year when DeRozan was hurt, and then when he was kind of awkward coming back, and then when Lowry was hurt for like the second half of the year and the playoffs, because that was miserable. And although they're playing great right now, I think that's the benefit of something like a 10-game lead, is that you can have this cushion. You've amply distinguished yourself from the rest of the pack in terms of where the Raptors stand in terms of a second-tier team in the East. Rest some of those guys down the stretch, man. There's no point in chasing number one. We'll beat the Cavaliers with or without home court advantage in the Eastern Conference Finals, baby.
There you go.
Yeah.
And that's the goal, I think.
That's ultimately the goal. Yeah.
I mean, I know the goal, the unspoken goal, is to just win one goddamn playoff series, please. But I think Eastern Conference Finals is, if you were to speak candidly with all those guys, get there, and then who knows what can happen. If you run into a Cavs team that's out Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love like they were last year, or is in disarray because Tyronn Lue, I don't know, did something.
Dude, what do we know about Tyronn Lue's coaching acumen?
We know that he was always expected to be a head coach. He was one of those guys that everyone was like, oh, he's like Chauncey Billups-esque, like, oh, he's going to make a great coach after he's done. We know he played with Michael and Kobe. So in terms of relating to LeBron and relating to players, because he was that kind of scrappy bounce between teams and always stick on the end of a roster, I think the range of players he can relate to is good. He was the associate head coach under Blatt, which means he was taking on a lot of play calling duties. I don't know in terms of like designing a scheme. I forget who wrote, but apparently players speak highly of like his photographic memory and things like that. So we only have 3 games to judge him off of, and that
was enough for him to get the All-Star coach.
Yeah, every new coach gets hyped like this, right? Because like you have to sell a hire, and people will have to look for reasons that a guy got hired.
Of course.
But I don't know. When I read everything, and I read the Woj, and I read the Windhorst, and the McMenamin, and the Jason Lloyd, I thought Tyronn Lue came out of all that looking great. He didn't stab Blatt in the back. He tried his best to keep the peace. He didn't give in and sign with Clutch Sports to appease LeBron. And the first thing he did was call LeBron and Kevin Love and Kyrie, kind of called them out publicly. So I think Lue's come out of this looking pretty good, and now it's a matter of can he actually coach. And we'll find out in the Eastern Conference Finals when he's head-to-head with, Coach of the Year Dwane Casey.
Wow.
I'm kidding.
Well, by the way, we'd be remiss. I mean, we're going a little bit long, but Terrence Ross, TJ Ross, has been on fire. I mean, well, tonight maybe not so much, but just recently, man. It's great that he's rediscovered a shot.
2016 3-point shootout champion Terrence Ross.
Right, I want him in the contest with Chris Bosh.
No, Chris Bosh?
Yeah.
That's so good. And Boogie doing the skills challenge.
Chris Bosh is going to put up 8 3 points.
Man,
I think he's going to end up single digits. This is not the event for Chris Bosh.
I'm so excited. Well, there's no team shooting anymore.
That's true. Yeah,
so maybe Bosh can just take his half court.
He's going to put the money ball rack at half court. Yo, I love how much Kenny and Reggie Miller say money ball rack. It just sounds so much like a euphemism for your jewels.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Okay, let's maybe wrap it there. Any parting shots to go out on, man?
Not so much, man. It's just a great time. It's a great time. I'm really excited for All-Star. I'm actually really excited for the 1 week break that comes with All-Star. I'm ready to dive into those trade rumors, and then not the BS ones that are like, oh, the Raptors are interested in David Lee, because why would the Raptors need a full 48 minutes of Louis Scola? Yeah. Let's get some real trade rumors, something to get excited about. Maybe a star becomes available. Maybe the Raptors make that jump. Who knows, man?
Maybe the Hornets need to lose and not get Michael Kidd-Gilchrist back on Friday.
It's so
we can
BS
get us some Nick Batum.
Yeah, they're 5-0 in overtime. That's it. All right. Without that, the whole Hornets season would be in shambles.
And like, I want Gallo, but the Raptors don't have the assets that would entice Denver. You'd have to find a third team, and like, I tried to work something on the one trade column with Utah and couldn't quite get there. And like, I don't really see. The thing is, you need someone who wants Terrence Ross.
Everybody wants Terrence Ross. Come on.
Yeah, because of the poison pill thing. Like, ideally, you route him to a third team that sends something to Denver that Denver wants, or you send Ross to Denver, find a team that needs a point guard to take on Corey Joseph. The Nuggets are obviously getting picks in this scenario. It's tough, man. There aren't enough teams, and the Nuggets are only 3 games out of the playoff race.
Yeah, I think most likely the Raptors make a small minor move with something like, I don't know, maybe like a 2-for-1. You stick one of the prospects along with James Johnson. You get one of those, someone who's only making $4 million but is slightly useful.
There
and
aren't
then
a lot
you
of
call
guys
up
like
a guy
that.
from the D League. I heard Axel Toupane is making noise, making waves.
Axel Toupane he's been on one lately. 30 points twice in his last 3 games. I wrote something up on him around the D League showcase time. He is like, his calling card is going to be defense. It should tell you a lot that he averaged single digit scoring in the French league as a 6th man. And he was still thought highly enough that I'm told the Raptors were worried when they waived him ahead of the season that maybe a team would claim him. And that's just on defense. And he didn't look like anything the offensive player he looks like now. Nobody cares about this, though, I'm sure.
Well, hey, look, if he could be a cheap replacement for James Johnson, and you can send out James Johnson's contract as something filler to get back something else.
Yeah,
like a Randy Foye.
James Johnson's stop with Randy Foye.
I don't know why I think Randy Foye's good.
He can't play the 3. Like, if the Raptors are going to add anything, it has to be someone who can play the 3 or the 4.
This is very true.
They don't need another shooting guard or point guard.
Yeah.
Like, you have Joseph, Lowry, DeRozan, and Ross to soak up those minutes.
Yeah, well, we've done enough trade talk. Look, it's very hard to find a good trade for the Raptors. But you know what? Masai Ujiri, he's paid to do this, and he's very good at it.
Yeah, I'm not. You saw that one thing where I was like calling bloggers and other writers and stuff, and like,
yeah,
it's tough. I just counted right now. There are only 5 teams in the league that are more than 5 games out of a playoff spot.
Yeah,
that makes it really hard to make trades.
But I mean, look, eventually some of those, like, the price will make sense for teams to trade.
Sure.
Yeah.
Got all those first round picks.
We do have a lot of first round picks, man. If only the first round picks counted for salary, because that's the biggest impediment to the Raptors right now. I said there's no salary you can ship out.
Yeah. Man, if only we could flip those picks for players like Andrea Bargnani and Gravis Vasquez, the players we dealt for those picks.
Jesus, man. Masai is a god. He's a god who will lead us to promised land.
Something. Okay. All right, let's wrap it there. We've gone almost 40 on this 30-minute podcast, so you're welcome, and we're sorry.
Nah, man. Look, people want to hear about happy things in a 10-game winning streak. They deserve a little more airtime.
That's my parting shot. I'm as guilty as most of looking for, not looking for, but finding the negatives. And last year was such a stark example of, if you just take wins as wins and you don't look at what's going on in those wins, that can really bite you and lead to some surprise later in the year. And that's been a focus for me this season as the Raptors get out to a hot start. But you have to, you watch sports for entertainment and for fun and for levity in your life. The Raptors are on a 10-game winning streak for the first time ever, and it's awesome. If you can't enjoy this, log off.
Hey, it's a great point to end on.
All right. Thanks, Liable. We'll talk next week. It'll be... Oh, no, it's not All-Star for 2 weeks. Damn, my heart just sank.
We'll be talking about the 16-game winning streak.
Yeah, 16. Okay, we'll talk about that. Talk to you next week, everyone. Have a good weekend.
See ya.
Hit the old kick drum like an alley-oop. Drop rhymes like dimes when I drive the hoop. Y'all must tune in if you want the scoop. The Rapcast crew on